You've seen them at the gas station, CF Moto adventure bikes with every feature BMW charges extra for. Kove sport bikes that look like they cost $15,000 but ring up at $6,000. And you probably thought the same thing everyone does, cheap Chinese junk that will grenade in 6 months. That assumption is dead wrong. And it is costing you money. The real reason European executives are losing sleep has nothing to do with motorcycles. The secret weapon crushing KTM and BMW is not even a motorcycle company. It is the Chinese automotive industry. We are talking trillion-dollar car manufacturers pouring resources into bike brands that European boutique shops cannot match. I am breaking down how the car industry accidentally built a motorcycle superpower that is about to flip your next purchase decision upside down. To understand why your next bike might have Chinese badges, stop looking at motorcycle factories. Look at what is happening with cars. Giants like Geely that own Volvo and Lotus, and BYD that is taking over the global electric vehicle market. These are not separate industries anymore. Technology does not stay in silos. When it trickles down from a massive car manufacturer to a motorcycle factory, it creates an unfair advantage in 3 brutal areas: electronics, batteries, and metallurgy. Start with electronics because that is what smacks you in the face on the showroom floor. A $5,000 Chinese sport bike comes with a massive full-color TFT display, Bluetooth connectivity, and tire pressure monitoring. Meanwhile, a Japanese bike that costs twice as much gives you a monochrome LCD from 2005. This is not because the Japanese are cheap. It is because the Chinese supply chain is flooded with high-tech components built for millions of electric vehicle dashboards a year. When a company produces screens for 5 million dashboards a year, the unit cost drops to almost nothing. Motorcycle brands like CF Moto and QJ Motor dip into that same massive bin of parts. They get top-tier tech for pennies on the dollar. European brands have to order smaller batches from third-party suppliers at premium prices. It is a volume game, and the car market gives Chinese bike makers a cheat code. Then there's the battery advantage. If you look at electric and hybrid motorcycles, the biggest cost is the power cell. China currently dominates the global battery market through companies like CATL and BYD. Because these massive conglomerates control raw materials and manufacturing for the automotive sector, domestic motorcycle startups get priority access and better pricing. While a European startup struggles to source affordable battery packs, a Chinese brand leverages the local automotive ecosystem to build a bike with better range and power for 30% less. But it's not just about slapping iPads and batteries onto frames. The biggest shift is in the metal itself. For decades, the knock on Chinese bikes was pot metal. Poor quality casting that would crack or rust. That changed when automotive money poured in. Car manufacturers spend billions on research and development for metallurgy and casting precision to meet global crash safety standards. That expertise and those machines are now standard in bike factories. We are seeing high-pressure die casting techniques originally refined for car chassis production being used to make motorcycle frames and swing arms. This results in lighter, stronger components that do not suffer from the inconsistencies of the past. They are not hand welding tubes in a shed anymore. They are using automated automotive-grade robotics. The result is a manufacturing base that operates with the financial safety net and technical precision of the car industry. They can afford to fail, iterate, and improve faster than a standalone motorcycle brand ever could. But having the money and the machines is only half the battle. The Europeans handed them the blueprints. The most critical turning point in this story was not a sudden technological breakthrough from a Chinese lab. It was a series of business deals that seemed smart at the time, but might have cost European manufacturers their future. For years, premium brands looked at China and saw one thing: a cheap workbench. They wanted to lower production costs to increase margins, so they entered joint ventures. The logic was simple. Europeans would provide the blueprints and strict quality standards. Chinese factories would provide the labor and facility. It worked great for quarterly reports, but they did not realize they were running a tuition-free university for their future competitors. Take a hard look at the relationship between KTM and CF Moto. This is arguably the most successful partnership in modern motorcycling. But look at who is really benefiting now. KTM needed a way to produce their midweight engines without the high labor costs of Austria. They partnered with CF Moto, creating a massive joint factory in Hangzhou. CF Moto did not just assemble parts. They were taught how to build the LCE-8C parallel twin engine from scratch, the heart of the 790 Duke and Adventure. They learned the metallurgy, the tight tolerances required for high-performance engines, and the quality control processes that keep a high-strung Austrian machine running. As a result, CF Moto now uses that exact same engine platform in their own bikes, like the Ibex 800 and the 800 MET. They legally acquired the engineering DNA of one of the best engines in the world. You can buy a CF Moto that has the heart of a KTM for thousands less. The manufacturing quality is nearly identical because it is coming off the same line, built by the same people using the same European standards. It's the same story with BMW and Lantzen. For over a decade, Lantzen has been the quiet giant manufacturing engines for BMW, including the parallel twins found in the F850 GS and F900 series. To make those engines, Lantzen had to upgrade their entire engineering capability to meet BMW's notoriously strict Bavarian standards. Once they mastered that, they didn't stop at making engines for Germans. They launched their own premium brand, Vosges. If you ride a Vosges today, you aren't riding a knockoff. You're riding a machine built by the same hands that build for BMW, using the engineering discipline paid for by BMW contracts. Then, you have the acquisition strategy best seen with QJ Motor and Benelli. While CF Moto and Lantzen learned engineering, QJ Motor bought a soul. By acquiring Benelli, a heritage Italian brand, they solved the one problem money usually can't fix: design and heritage. Chinese bikes used to look derivative or awkward, but by purchasing an Italian design center, Kove gained the ability to make bikes that look emotionally compelling. The Benelli TRK 502 didn't just sell well. It became the best-selling motorcycle in Italy, beating out local heroes like Ducati and Moto Guzzi. This is the Trojan horse effect in full swing. European brands invited these manufacturers into their inner circle to save a few bucks on production. In exchange, they handed over the keys to the castle. They trained Chinese engineers on how to build reliable, high-performance engines and how to design beautiful chassis. The master taught the apprentice everything he knew, assuming the apprentice would always be content working for minimum wage. Instead, the apprentice took those lessons, combined them with that massive automotive capital, and opened a shop across the street. The engineering gap is effectively closed. The 790 and 800 cubic centimeter platforms powering these new Chinese adventure bikes are proof that the cheap copy era is dead. These engines are legit because they were designed by the best in the business. So at this point, they have the money, the factories, and the blueprints. The last question was simple. Could they actually perform? For a long time, the biggest insult you could throw at a Chinese motorcycle was that it was just a commuter, fine for delivering pizzas at 30 miles per hour. But the prevailing wisdom was that if you took it to a track day or tried to redline it, the engine would likely turn into a grenade. That stereotype kept European CEOs comfortable. They convinced themselves that while China could make cheap engines, they could not make fast engines. They lacked the racing pedigree and decades of data required to win. That comfort zone just evaporated, and the speed at which it happened is terrifying for the establishment. Look at what Kove did at the Dakar Rally. This is the single most grueling motorsport event on the planet. It breaks machines that have millions of dollars of development behind them and leaves riders stranded in the dunes. Kove, a brand that did not even exist a few years ago, showed up with the 450 Rally. They did not just show up to take pictures, they sent 3 bikes and all 3 crossed the finish line. You know how insane that is for a rookie manufacturer? Brands like Honda and KTM spent decades refining their rally bikes to get that kind of reliability. Kove did it on their first real try. This proved that Chinese engineering is not just about copying dimensions, it is about understanding durability under extreme stress. They built a bike that could survive thousands of miles of desert abuse right out of the box, proving their metallurgy and reliability can take a beating. Then switch over to the tarmac with CF Moto in Moto 3. This is where precision matters most. In Moto 3, you are squeezing every ounce of horsepower out of a tiny engine running at screaming revolutions per minute for entire races. If your metallurgy is off by a fraction or your tolerances are loose, you do not finish. CF Moto is not just participating, they are fighting at the front, taking podiums and battling giants like Honda. The fact remains, a Chinese logo is on the podium of the World Championship. It sends a clear message. They have mastered the art of the high-performance engine. They are not scared of the red line anymore. How did they get this fast this quickly? Again, look at the automotive connection. Developing a high-performance chassis usually requires expensive wind tunnel time and shaker rig testing that small motorcycle brands can barely afford. But because these brands are backed by industrial giants, they have access to state-of-the-art testing facilities that rival Formula One teams. They can simulate years of abuse in a week. They can refine aerodynamics using the same technology used to streamline electric cars for better range. This allows them to skip the 20 years of trial and error that European brands had to go through. They are speedrunning the development process using car industry cheat codes. Winning races builds hype. It looks cool on a poster. But for the average rider, a podium finish does not mean anything if the bike dissolves in the rain or you wait 6 months for a clutch cable. Reliability and parts availability still matter. Performance isn't the weak link anymore, but trust is earned in the garage when parts break. For years, the horror story was always the same. You buy a cheap bike, a clutch cable snaps, and you spend the next 3 months staring at a motionless lump of metal in your garage because the replacement part is on a slow boat from somewhere you cannot pronounce. That fear is valid, but the landscape is shifting faster than you think. First, look at the warranties. Confidence is currency in this industry. If a manufacturer knows their product is junk, they give you a 6-month guarantee and hide. Today, brands like CF Moto are offering 2-year unlimited mileage warranties that match or even exceed what you get from Austria or Italy. They are not doing this out of charity. They have the data from their automotive-grade testing facilities proving these engines will not blow up. They are putting their money where their mouth is, forcing you to reconsider the risk. Then there is the dealership network. This is where the automotive logistics muscle really flexes. In the past, importers were sketchy operations working out of warehouses. Now these brands are leveraging established global supply chains. Because they are often tied to massive industrial conglomerates, they can ship replacement parts through the same sophisticated logistics channels used by car manufacturers. We are seeing parts fill rates jump from 50% to over 90% in major markets. They are fixing the supply chain because they cannot afford to have a bad reputation anymore. You are now seeing these bikes on the showroom floor right next to Kawasaki's and Yamaha's, not hidden in the back. The numbers back this up. While traditional Japanese and European sales have been relatively flat or struggling with supply chain issues, Chinese motorcycle exports to Europe and the United States have been aggressively climbing. They are capturing the entry and mid-level market simply because they actually have inventory. But the real dagger to the heart of the European establishment is the pricing power play. Thanks to that massive scale of production, they can undercut European prices by 30 to 40% while offering more stuff. This forces the old guard into a corner they cannot innovate their way out of. Walk into a dealership. A BMW F900 GS is an incredible machine. But by the time you add the premium package to get the quick shifter, the heated grips, and the TFT screen, you have added thousands to the price. A comparable Chinese bike often includes the crash bars, the luggage, the tech, and the quick shifter as standard equipment, all for a sticker price that is still thousands less than the base model of the European competitor. The math does not lie. The market share reality is changing because the stigma is fading. The value proposition is too loud to ignore. The one area where they still lag is resale value. You will lose more money selling a used Chinese bike than a Honda. But for many new riders, the upfront savings are worth that risk. Save $5,000 now, lose $2,000 more on resale in 5 years. The gap is closing, and the wallet vote is starting to swing east. Stop calling them cheap copies. That era is dead. What you are looking at now is a fundamental shift in the power structure of the motorcycle industry. European brands are not fighting scrappy startups anymore. They are fighting competitors with deeper pockets, faster factories, and a hunger to dominate that comes from being backed by trillion-dollar automotive conglomerates. The financial calculation has changed. Used to be simple: buy Japanese or European, pay a premium price, get bulletproof reliability and strong resale value. That math held for 30 years. Now you're looking at a different equation. Save $5,000 up front on a Chinese bike versus potential resale loss down the road. For a lot of riders, especially those entering the market or upgrading from smaller displacement, that trade-off makes sense. The stigma is fading because the performance data is real. These are not theoretical claims anymore. Kove finished Dakar. CF Moto is on Moto3 podiums. 2-year unlimited mileage warranties are not marketing gimmicks. They are backed by automotive grade testing data that proves these engines can handle abuse. The risk assessment has shifted from, will this explode, to, can I live with lower resale value? Here's what happens if the resale gap narrows, and historically, it usually does once reliability gets proven. As more Chinese bikes hit the used market with solid track records, buyers stop treating them like gambles. Once a CF Moto 800 MT with 50,000 miles on it sells for reasonable money because it did not grenade, the entire value proposition shifts permanently. At that point, European brands lose their last advantage. Chinese brands are already capturing entry and mid-level markets through actual inventory. While you are waiting 6 months for a Yamaha Tracer to show up at your dealer, there are 10 CF Moto 800 MT bikes sitting on the floor ready to ride today. Availability is a feature. When you cannot buy the bike you want, you buy the bike that is there. The uncomfortable truth is that the value proposition is too loud to ignore. A bike with the same engine platform as a KTM, the same tech as a BMW, proven racing performance, and a legitimate warranty for 40% less money, that is not a gamble anymore. That is just smart buying. The only question left is whether your ego can handle Chinese badges in your garage. The motorcycle industry's power structure has just flipped, and most riders have not noticed yet. The Chinese are not coming. They are already here. They are fast, and they are backed by money. European boutique manufacturers cannot match. Drop a comment with which Chinese brand you would actually consider buying. Hit subscribe so we can keep exposing the truths the industry does not want you to think about.